Well, MLS After Dark was not kind to DC United tonight as we fall 4-1 to the San Jose Earthquakes. Thanks for joining us, whether, very, very early in the morning or later on in the podcast. You're listening to Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. I'm Sam Kasner, joined by Joshua Morgan and Michael Black. Obviously, you're used to hearing John Lee's voice opening the show. He is on vacation. I have a hunch that he timed his vacation to have to avoid the late night show. We'll see if we let him back on next week. But for right now, what did y'all think about that game as we wait for the press conference to get started?
Oof, I think John got off easy, not just in the late night recording, but also in the viewing of this game. I think he was following along a little bit, but probably not as intently as we were trying to. Man, what a game. A tough result for DC United, and I can't wait to break it down with you guys.
Yeah, this is a game that you went into, and both Joshua and I had fairly negative expectations. It's a challenging situation, but to come out and frankly get outplayed and not really have a whole lot of ideas of what you're trying to do.
Felipe, go ahead and raise your hands now. Thanks.
Yeah, we're getting.
Sounds like we're about to go into the press conference here. It's a frustrating night all around, and you never want to lose by 3 goals and give up 4. It's not what you want.
Yeah, it was tough. Black, I think you're right. I think we knew it was going to be tough going into tonight, especially after that lineup came out. I was honestly surprised to see that we didn't use all 4 field player subs that we had available. We'll definitely get into that later, but I don't know. I predicted a win. Claudia predicted a win. I think we might have been the only ones who thought that we were going to get anything out of this game, and I'm excited to hear what Losada has to say about it. It felt like we were going to go for it in the pregame press conference, but it just, I don't know. We looked a little bit a step off tonight. It didn't look like we were kind of clicking in the way I expected us to be progressing at this point.
And that's kind of what the Almeida's system in San Jose tries to do. They do a man marking system, which is very weird. And Losada talked about I saw this in Belgium a couple times. We learned how to play against it, but San Jose are kind of a beast in that way. And not that Losada wasn't prepared, but on the night it looked like the high pressure, or not super high pressure, but the man marking system that San Jose had our pressure kind of messed up, and that you could see that quite a few times with our defensive line sprinting back. And guys, it's never going to be good this year when you see Fred Rillon at however father time, as I'll call him, for the rest of the season, sprinting back like that, especially
against a 17-year-old Cade Cowell, who's lighting this league on fire so far. 3 games in, lots of eyes are on him. But yeah, you're right. I think this is one of those games that I wish we had the opportunity as a podcast to kind of watch the game back before really getting into these before really analyzing them. Because a lot of times, we're watching as fans, we're really excited, but I'd love to really watch those plays and how we broke down. I mean, I know the first, maybe second goal was very clearly a mistake on our end, but yeah, I'd like to see exactly what went wrong. Black, what do you think?
It had the feeling of one of those goofy San Jose games that you're used to seeing over the years. They're a team that can score a lot of goals and they can give up a lot of goals. Especially when we got that goal back, late in the first half to make it 2-1. You thought that might be a turning point in the game where perhaps there could have been another 4 goals scored and have it ended up 5-4 game or something like that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it didn't really come off that way. You had several errors. I don't think you can pin it on any one person. The defense across the board was frankly poor tonight. And you had a little bit of attacking presence. You definitely tried to play direct, but definitely failed to finish chances too. So when you have that kind of combination, it's going to be difficult to win no matter who you're playing.
Yeah, it did, especially like you said, Black. When it was 2-1, I started, always same as the outward optimist, but I think all deep down we're always optimistic and want DC United to claw their way back in the games. And listen to Dave be so happy about it, and I believed it. I thought 2-1, maybe we grab one of these next goals and it becomes more, and we start to break down their man marking. But yeah, it didn't, and I think a lot of our breakdowns were down to, I don't know, kind of our own doing as well. Sam, you talked about like watching it back and getting analysis and seeing that. We'll probably do that later in the week, but yeah, just initially, I think Nyman had a good game, but also he looked kind of out of sync with DC United's pressure. I think, again, Brillant should not be the one sprinting back by himself. One of those two midfielders has to be there to help out, especially since our center backs get super wide when we're in possession.
You saw Nyman, though, kind of making that run back in one of them. It was the off-the-goal save, and honestly, I was happy that he had the presence of mind to get behind sights, but I was also really frustrated with him because he did not do a very good job of following his mark and, you know, really putting pressure on him, so it didn't get to the point where he was having to save the ball off the line. And I think... Go ahead, Black.
Yeah, when you look at the highlights later of the week, you're going to see that save off the line, and but you're right. You find yourself in a position where Sites was having to go one-on-one several times, and say what you will about Chris Sites, he's not a top tier keeper in this league, and he's not going to make every save there. I wouldn't put really any of the goals solely on him, but not a great night when your keeper lets in 4.
Yeah. What did you all think of the difference in halves? Obviously, we didn't start super well in the first half, conceding very quickly, but I noticed a definite drop-off in that second half. And again, I'm interested to hear what Losada has to say, potentially about what he said to the guys in the locker room. But what did you all notice?
You think you saw a drop-off from DC United in the second half? I thought the game kind of mellowed out in San Jose. I don't know. They were breaking a lot against us in the first half, and we were getting caught on that. Maybe they weren't trying. I don't know. I didn't think... I thought there was a chance for DC United, and Devin McTavish kind of talked about it. I thought they could have gotten one back from a set piece or something and made it 3-2 and then made it somewhat of a game. But yeah, then it ends up going the other way. Sorga misses a sitter and they counterattack and score the fourth. So I don't know if the second half was worse than the first half for me. I don't know. What do you think, Black?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think either half was great. I think
that's the right answer.
If you're, I'm really going into depth on analysis here. But when you have San Jose in a situation where they're comfortably ahead, they don't really have to push it. They're not really going to be too frustrated by the high press that DC United is trying to play. And we've heard Losada talk about you're not going to be going in that high press all the time. Frankly, I didn't think they were able to maintain it through that second half. You weren't creating sync opportunities, and San Jose wasn't going to put you in a position to it. They were perfectly happy to sit back a little bit and then hit you on the counter. That's how the fourth goal happened. It was not a situation where you were ever really thought that DC was going to get back in the game. You would have liked to see perhaps a slightly different approach, but it's very clear that this team is still figuring out how to make the system work. And it's frustrating, but I'm still going to give them plenty of time to sort it out.
Yeah, maybe that's what I was noticing in the second half, that San Jose was sitting back because they were able to. They were very comfortably up, and we perhaps had better chances trying to counter them. At least it felt like we were really on the front foot and had a lot more energy. And in the second half, Black, to your point, we are still learning the system. You could see passes not right to players, passes where they thought other players were going to be running. You can see that it's just not quite there yet. And in the second half, the fact that San Jose was sitting back more, maybe that just kind of exacerbated the issue, and we just could never really get a rhythm.
Yeah, we couldn't get a rhythm the whole game, and there's a lot of questions for that front group. I've been, making more and more remarks about it. Sorga finally got his first shot of the season in this game, despite starting the first 3 games, and it was an open goal. I don't want to get too much into that.
And he didn't score.
He didn't score. But none of the front 3. The only forward I think that has a shot besides Sorga tonight was forward.
Hey, Coach, it's Zach. Can you hear me?
Oh.
Hey, Zach.
All right, we're going to head over to the DC United press conference now.
Great. All right, folks, we'll go ahead and get started. We'll go to Steve Goff first. Steve, go ahead, man.
Hi, Hernan. How would you assess the match tonight, which obviously got off to a very bad start?
I don't think you can ask more to this team at this moment. Like you said, a bad start. After 2 minutes, we were losing. But I had the feeling, and now after the game, watching the statistics, that the game was never 3 goals difference, and there were many key moments that decide the game, like the 2 first mistakes we make in the first and the second goal. After being 2-1 down, we had a set piece with Junior Moreno that should score the 2-2, and from that counter they almost scored the 3-1. They scored a Champions League goal, the third one outside the 18-yard box, and you go to the halftime with a 3-1 situation, while honestly I didn't saw on the field a 2 difference goal after 45 minutes. And of course, then you play a little bit all or nothing. You have a chance with an empty goal to score the 2-3, and 2 minutes later, 4-1, and the game is over. But once again, I don't think you can ask more to these 14 field players we had today in San Jose, and we keep pushing from the physical part and from the mental part, and some of them are giving their max. Some of them still can improve. But okay, when you lose the way you lose today, with so many scoring chances, with so many attempts to goal, with more possession than the opponent playing here at San Jose, I think there's still many positive things to keep on building up, knowing that we have limitations, and hopefully in the future, when we recover some guys and some soldiers, everything will be better.
We'll go to Jason Anderson.
Hi, Hernan. Thanks for speaking with us. You made the double substitution at halftime. What were you looking to change by bringing Felipe and Perez in, and did you get that out of them?
Well, basically, we practice and we show a million clips during the week, knowing that you play against an opponent who likes to be 1v1 all over the field, and it's about winning those battles, those 1v1 battles. And many moments during the first half, I have the feeling that there was, for some players, a lot of ground in front of them to drive with the ball, to just challenge the space, to take more risk. And we were scared and looking to give a pass when you have like 20 yards in front of you to drive with the ball and force something. And on the final third, we need to get better. I mean, we scored today again on a set pieces situation, but field goals, we have so many difficulties to score. Nevertheless, we create enough scoring moments and scoring opportunities to score more than 1 goal. So with both changes, I was expecting more drive and more energy and a lot of more risk on the final third. So that was the intention. Very happy with the minutes that Felipe and Andy Najar made today, knowing that they're coming from far. They can be important players for us in the future. So that's another positive item tonight after this big defeat.
We'll take a couple more questions. We'll go back to Steve Goff.
Hernan, a few of the guys have injuries from, last season or before the season, but there've been a lot of players getting hurt the last 6 or 7 weeks. Why do you think there's been so many injuries?
Every player is different, so I cannot tell you now the 14, 13 different situations we have. Like I told you before the first game that this group was not fit enough. They came back from 4 months off season, totally unfit, many with overweight. Nobody had control over what the players were doing during those 4 months. And some of them are paying the price. But 60, 70% of the injuries are injuries from the past. Injuries that you could avoid with individual programs, checking the physical test that they did to attack those weaknesses, players who have problems in the past. So, to be honest with you, the two cases we have this week are special cases because to go to the case of Russ had his second vaccine on Tuesday. On Wednesday was feeling very bad. We had a hard session on Wednesday, and probably that make a contra effect or a bad effect. And on Thursday, on our very light session, after giving a pass, he felt something on the adductor. With Roberta, was exactly the same. So feeling something in his hamstring after an MRI, they found that was an old injury from 3 years ago, a scar tissue that he has from the past. Those kind of things can happen, but to be honest with you, I'm not planning to change the way we are training or the way we are working. Other departments that needs to change and needs to adapt to our way of work, and not the other way around. I get to make a change and not to keep on doing the things we have been doing for the last 10 years. So I tell you, to be honest, still in this hard defeat 4-1, I see many positive things. And I'm sure that when the guys are coming back and some of them are getting closer, we will get stronger. But unfortunately, all the special cases are happening in this United, and we have many players. Un oponente que tiene en papel mucha más calidad que nosotros. Luego vas a New England y terminás perdiendo por un gol en contra. New England hoy le gana a Atlanta. Entonces te das cuenta que hiciste un partido muy parejo contra un oponente que es, en papel, más poderoso que nosotros. Y hoy venís a San José y generás un montón de situaciones de gol y tenés algunos momentos clave durante el partido que podrían haberte puesto otra vez en el juego y en el resultado, y terminás perdiendo contra un rival que en papel es más fuerte que nosotros. Así que el balance es más que positivo, y tener 3 puntos de 9, habiendo jugado con 3 rivales que en papel son más fuertes que nosotros, bueno, con todas las bajas que tenemos y con el plantel tan acotado con el cual contamos en este momento, creo que el balance es más que positivo.
Coach, thank you. That's all. Appreciate it.
Yes, have a good night. Bye.
Hats off to Hernan Losada right there, going off. There's a lot in what he just said that I would love to unpack. Obviously, we're going to hear from Felipe next, so we can't get too into it. But I loved that response to Goff's question, which was a little bit leading, asking why are all these players getting injured, and Hernan went off. He said, it's not my fault. These players came to me unequipped to play soccer, essentially. And then he kind of went off and said, there are a lot of different departments here that need to change the way they're doing things. I love how he took that and really stood his ground. What do y'all think?
Yeah, the injury discussion is interesting. I mean, obviously, when you've got basically half your roster unable to even make the trip, you've got issues, and they vary across the board. But I think we saw something, I think it was the Athletic piece this week where Paul was talking about how in a different year he would probably be already back and available for selection, but Hernan really demands that players be at top fitness, ready to go before they are able to get out there, which I think you're seeing with just how short we are on players on the field. But it's definitely he said it himself. Players came in overweight, and he didn't know what they were doing for those few months during the off season.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah, we'll
go to Steve Goff.
Black, we'll definitely get into it, but we're going to Felipe now.
Hey, Felipe, thanks for your time. Yeah, man, how do you look at the team after this match? Obviously, a bad start. A lot of players are missing. You came back, Andy's back now. But where do you think this team stands right now with everything that's going on?
The same way we stand before this game. I think we We have a big belief in this team. Obviously, we don't look at excuses. We don't look at what is missing, but what we have right now and what we have. To be fair, it was a great week. We prepared so good for this game. We felt very good, but again, the first 15 minutes we getting punched, and that throws away all the preparation. And obviously, after the goals, the confidence need to continue to be high. We continue to push. We score even after the second goal. We score a goal, and we win the game. I talked to Sorga right after the game, and I said, the next time we gotta put the guy inside the goal and break the net, because if he scored that goal, we still in the game. And until the last minute, we keep believing. That's the way we are. That's the way we look at things. We don't look at the negatives, and we don't start to point excuses. We know where we're going. We know what we're about, and we're going to continue to push.
We'll go to Jason Anderson.
Hi, Felipe. I know it's a tough night after a loss to talk about something that personally was good. How do you feel after finally getting to actually play in a competitive game, and how do you think you did on the night?
I feel like I never left. That's my team. That's how I feel. I feel like home every single day with the boys. And, I tried my best. I tried my best to make the team have more possession, to start more belief, to get the team up the field. But I don't look only at myself. To be fair, I don't care about me coming back today, but about we lost. And we got to look at me like I was one of the players that play for the past 3 games. And that's what we're going to do during this week to get ready for Columbus. And let's forget about my comeback. And it's time to look at the team and what we can do better. Because now I'm back, and nothing we need to continue to talk about.
We'll go to Jose Umania. Jose.
You being out there, what were your thoughts on the team's midfield and its defensive being out there and how San Jose plays?
Yeah, I think the criticism is well deserved, but at the same time, you didn't have another option at forward.
Yeah,
you did though.
Well, Kamani Smith has been looked at. Is that what you're doing?
I'm absolutely talking about Kamani Smith. He played lights out. He scored so many goals in the preseason, and I know that preseason is a beast of its own, but I'm shocked. Sorga has been playing badly. He cannot connect passes. He's not making good runs. He is not putting shots on goal. Like, I think it's absurd that he's getting the amount of minutes he can, and that Kamani Smith has not gotten any type of look this season.
I trust Losada there. I think, look, that was a lesson by a veteran MLS player to a very young striker. Hey, next time you got to bury that. And this is why, and this is how you should do it. And maybe this is the growing pains for Sorga. He came in, he didn't really get a full season last year. He was supposed to bounce back and forth between Loudon, but he wasn't really allowed to. So maybe these are growing pains. I'm not pleased with his performance in the first 3 games, especially given the chances. We talked before the season about equity in minutes at the striker position. Like, who are you investing that time in? And I said it should not be Ola Kamara, because he showed last year that despite the time we gave him, he wasn't the same player he was before. And maybe he does get some more looks down the line whenever he's healthy, if he ever, hopefully he does get healthy. But yeah, the equity in minutes that we've given Sorga, and he's put off, and he's had 1 shot at goal, and
it was a pass. It was not a shot.
And it's the one that he just had to get lectured on by both the coach and the midfielder. I don't know, but who knows? That maybe this is what makes him a DC United player, and the one that we in a few years we could all be eating our words because Sorga bags goals.
I would love
every
it.
game.
This season, next game, if against Columbus he scores a hat trick, right? I will gladly. I mean, not eat my words, because I'm saying he's been playing poorly the past 3 games, and I think that's just fact. But I would love for him to step it up and really do some damage in front of goal. Black, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you obviously want to see success there, and I am very curious what's happening in practice that Kamari Smith isn't getting a look, even for, like, today would have been an opportunity when you're down 4-1. You can't really get a whole lot worse, so why not run the kid out there? it does seem a bit curious, but I'm sure they had their reasons. Maybe there's, I'm not even going to speculate, but definitely not what we need there.
Yeah, and I think that's my point. Like, Sorga just wasn't doing it today. You could see that he was off. So why not give Smith 20 minutes at the end of the game when you really haven't had momentum? It really doesn't look like you're going to come back into it, and just see what the kid can do out there.
Maybe they have seen. I don't know. We're not in the training session.
You're right.
So
I want to.
I trust Hernan. I think he's always looking. I think he trusts the youth players. Moses Nyman got the start basically by default, but he was given a lot of time on the game. I want to also talk about, look, last season the theme was that Yamil Assad was in John's doghouse. and I think we made the joke a couple weeks ago or maybe last week that, maybe Assad is out and, Flores is in. But I think we might have to build a double-decker or something. Neither of them really providing much of anything. Flores had some shots off tonight, but none of them really seemed, it's hard to judge when the shot goes into the stands afterward whether it was like a true opportunity. I've yet to see him hit one of those really, so I don't know. I didn't see a lot from those two guys. And Hernan talked about how this game statistically wasn't that big of. It wasn't 4-1 on the stat sheet, which the stats, yes, the goals are on the stat sheet, but everything else, possession wise, shots on target, shots total. Even possession, like I said, possession, but yeah, we weren't supposed to win possession, and we were close again tonight. So I don't know. I think when you have games like that where it's close, you're looking to those players who have that little bit of something else to make the little bit of something else happen. And
I think that player that we're missing right now is Bill Hamid. Right?
Oh,
there were Sites had a very rough night tonight, and yes, there were a lot of times when the defense did not have his back, but he should have saved 4 goals. I'm super disappointed with the night he had.
I'd be interested to see on like average goalkeeper probably gets a hand or two to some of those. I think Bill Hamid
absolutely saves them.
Always on top. I think he does get it, but Bill Hamid is a freak of nature.
But we're missing. You said you need those players that kind of make something out of nothing, and typically you're talking about the field players, but we saw last season that Bill kept us in games we had no room being in.
I don't want to go back to that.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to either. But how about us staying in games when we do belong in them, right? If this is a game that on the stat sheet we were pretty even, why is it down to the goalie, right? Like, I'd rather have Bill in there saving our butts.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it before. I'm very much of the opinion that Bill Hamid is worth about a goal a game. And if this game ends up 3-1 or Sorga manages to put it in the back of the net late in the 3-2, maybe it feels like a fair result based on those statistics that the coach was talking about afterwards. But looking through the YouTube chat, there's our favorite conversation about the role that Flores is playing in the squad, and frankly, another disappointing day from him today. You didn't see a whole lot of what you would expect from an expensive DP signing. What do y'all think?
I think it's tough, and Matt Doyle from MLSsoccer.com has talked a little bit about it, but Zelarayan, the guy that basically won Columbus Crew an MLS Cup in the final last season, was playing in Liga MX, and so was Flores. And Doyle said that Flores would probably be the player that you would go after, looking at them when they were both playing in Liga MX. So it's tough because I think they're being asked different things. Like Zelarayan plopped down into a team that has a good base, a striker that can finish, and he's really thrived there. Flores is being asked, well, he got here and COVID happened. COVID happened for Zelarayan too, but a coaching change and all the stuff. He didn't have a striker crisis, I would say. We have like 7 guys now, and none of them have goals this season. But I don't know. It's tough. I want to give Flores the benefit of the doubt, but he's got to start doing it on the field for me.
What, is that just like a theme of DC United, that we have these players who are supposed to play phenomenally, but then you pop them into a little bit of a struggling team and they can't pick the team up? Because as you were talking, I thought, yeah, it sounds like you're talking about Gressel as well. And he, again, had a pretty poor night tonight. I think a lot of his crosses did not beat the first man. I was super frustrated that he was taking shots from 20 yards behind the 18-yard box that really just rolled into the keeper. I didn't think he had a good game tonight, but he's another one that, is supposed to play really well and did really well in Atlanta, and then you popped him in here and where the team is struggling a little bit, and I guess we just have a bunch of players maybe who aren't the types of guys that put teams on their backs.
I don't know if that's fair. I think if you look at the stats, Flores and Gressel are by far our best players. And if you look at the heat maps and where the shots and crosses are coming in from, it's their side. So maybe it's a little bit predictable. If I was a San Jose coach this week, I would have said, we're just going to defend the left side of our defense every day in practice, because that's all you have to do. Like, we aren't really threatening from Yamil hasn't put anything dangerous in. And we know Mora hasn't really either. Gressel should have had an assist tonight. We talked about the Sora thing in peace, but I don't know. At some point you do have to change the team. Like, one of these players needs to step up, but the unit is so broken right now, I think, with all the injuries and everything that's been going on for them, just a tactical change and two pretty tough road games early on in the season. I'm not freaking out.
Yeah,
But
and you heard from both Coach Lasada and from Felipe talking about, trusting the system, building what you're trying to build and kind of that next man up mentality. But frankly, it's hard to have that kind of approach and say, oh, we're going to play our system when none of these guys have played that system before. You can't just expect people to slot in and keep going when you don't really have a great grasp on how it's supposed to work. You see it in flashes, less so tonight, I think. You're still missing that quality in the final third, and I think you're seeing a much more mature version of the system in San Jose, and that's why they were able to put together several quality goals. I mean, our goal came off a corner. It wasn't run a play. It wasn't system creating it. It was a corner, and those goals count just as much. But if you're not creating chances, you're not going to put it in the back of the net.
Yeah, and it was interesting to me because going into this show, I thought, that you could tell off the corner that it was another one off the practice field, right? Obviously, they're practicing set pieces, so I thought, I wonder if they're really focusing on set pieces because they know that that's where the goals are going to come from as they're learning the system. And then once everybody gets more comfortable playing as a team and pressing together, that's when we can expect more goals happening within the run of play. And then Lasada comes on and he's very frustrated that we have not had any goals from the run of play, which obviously blows my theory out of the water. So were you all struck by when he made that comment?
I mean, everything from his ethos so far makes me think that he's not satisfied with, bunkering for most of the game and scoring off of set pieces, which is what we're used to. And I'm not saying that's but
that's not what I was expecting. I more meant as we're learning, and that final pass isn't like, there was one, I don't remember who did it, but it was a through ball to Flores, and it was just a little too hard. And, perhaps later in the season, the right pacing to put on that, and Flores just automatically knows to make that run because you could kind of see he was still looking behind him, waiting to see if the pass was even going to go through. So things like that where, there were moments in this game definitely when you could see what we were building up to and it just wasn't quite there. So while we're getting there, my thought was perhaps we're just going to rely on these set pieces.
I don't think that's in Enron's DNA. I think what we heard from him kind of goes back to his Goff answer about injuries. Like, I'm not going to change the way I do things. The other departments in our organization need to catch up, and I am sure I think that might transfer over to how he wants to play the game. I think I'm not going to change my style of play so that we can scrape out a draw against San Jose on the road off a couple set piece goals. We're going to play how I want to play, and you guys can catch up. And I'd like that because that's more sustainable. Because people will start defending set pieces against you.
And looking at the other end of the field on the defense, the first two goals were frankly very poor performance from the DC United back line. On that first goal, it felt like Heinz slid over, tried to help out, and they just got overwhelmed. And a great shot. I don't know if anyone gets to that save, but when a man like that has enough space at the top of the box to hit a shot like that, there's definitely a defensive failure. And then the second goal, Brian got smoked. I don't know if he needs to, commit a technical foul there or something, but it was definitely, like, it was almost seemed like by the time he could have decided to commit the foul, he was already off to the races, and that's not a race that Brion's going to win very often.
Yeah, I wonder how much the short bench is affecting the defense there, because I think they could have fouled at least on the first one, and like you said, maybe on the second one they should as well. But when you know that the only defender you have on the bench is a right back who's coming back from an ACL injury, like you know that you can't be on thin ice, and so you don't make those challenges. I wonder if that's a factor in it, and it's worth noting that I don't know how old Brillant is anymore, but he's father time for DC United's back line, and then we have two brand new center backs who Alfaro has played in this league before, and technically Heinz Eich was drafted, but he went to Europe, but they're brand new, and I don't know if they're starters at the end of the season. No, I don't think this set of three will be. So there's going to be some growing pains there, and as we get more solid in our fitness, as Losada would talk about it, and our tactical understanding, I think we'll see a lot of improvement there. But it was pretty poor from the back line.
Yeah, and it was great to see Nahara back out there in black and red, or marble as the case was tonight. I did wonder a little bit if one of the reasons for pulling out Alfaro was that he had a yellow card, and with how thin you are at center back right now, if he had happened to pick another one, things start looking very bleak looking at next week. But he didn't really touch on that in the post game, so we'll have to continue to wonder about that.
I think you're spot on there, Black. I know that Birnbaum's is a little bit more long term of a recovery. I'm not sure about Pines, but I'm sure we'll find out about that in the midweek and the pregame press conference.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate it, and I wrote down the exact quote that Felipe said is, we're not looking at what's missing, we're looking at what we have. And you could tell he didn't want to talk about the players who were injured, and I mean, he was very frank that he didn't want to talk about himself coming back from injury. But you kind of can't ignore it when you have 5 field player subs, right? And the fact that Paul Arriola said, I think last year I would be playing right now, but I'm just not up to fitness. I don't know. To me, it's still surprising that he doesn't make the trip, right? At least sit on the bench if we need him for 20 minutes at the end, because we are very short. And to me, it's a little worrying, because we're talking about the team learning the system, and the way that Losada wants to play depends upon a team being very familiar with one another. But we have an entire team that's on the injury list that's going to start cycling in one by one, right? So we're waiting. We keep saying we're waiting for the team to learn the system. We're waiting for the team to learn the system. But new people are going to come back, and that's going to extend the amount of time it takes to learn the system. And I just wonder what's like in Losada's back pocket to handle that.
Yeah, and I think if that practice continues, into the fall and into next season, where if you aren't 100%, you're not, available for selection, I think we'll find that very frustrating. It may just be a question of sending a message saying you have to be top of your game to play for me if you're Losada. We're still only 3 games in. It's still early, but if we still are carrying 12 people on the injured list, some with lesser injuries than others, that will definitely you'll have to start asking questions, because it's a long season that people are going to have to play through some things. You can count on having 100% fitness across the board, and part of that's why they pay looking at the notes, why they pay Losada the big bucks is to balance that and say, hey, is 80% of one of your top players better than 100% of a guy who maybe doesn't get as many minutes? That's part of the juggling act you have throughout the season.
It's interesting, and I don't want to say it's too much about this weight thing, but I think Losada is pretty keyed in on that. If you're not meeting the standards, I know in England or in Europe you can be fined as a player for not meeting standards. And I know they have the little fine wheel now, but I think that's all like little slap, like a slap on the wrist kind of stuff, not like your week's pay is gone because you are overweight or that you didn't do the training that I told you needed to do, or you didn't show up to your specialized program. I wonder if he's getting a little bit frustrated with that because we don't I don't think we have those same mechanisms here in MLS. And so maybe that's a little bit like why these guys aren't getting playtime, because they're not meeting the standard. And I'm not mad about that. And I recognize that, yeah, we're probably better with players, some players at 80% versus, the backups on 100. But I think it's a good thing that he's pushing these players to be better and be, better soccer players, but better athletes as well.
I think the professionals to be better as well. All the departments.
Yeah, that was pretty tough, and we were talking to a coach after a 4-1 loss, but and he's got a whole team of players that are injured right now. That's pretty frustrating. I would not want to be. It's an injury nightmare right now for DC United, and this is Losada's first steps with the club. It's tough.
Well, even injuries aside, he basically said the players were left to their own devices over the off season, and they didn't have, any type of training programs. And I know they can't really like train as a team together, but one would think they still kind of get something from the team that says this is, the like weight you need to be maintaining. This is like your mile time. Obviously, it's very superficial, but I'm sure they have in other teams marks in the off season that you need to make sure that you're still hitting. I remember, Chris Pontius. I remember when Chris Pontius and Birnbaum were both playing on DC United together. They posted on Instagram they were out on vacation, and they were posting themselves doing their workouts, and they were kind of joking about how their girlfriends at the time were having to like video record them and go off and do other things, but they were very much working out and still, maintaining that athleticism even during the off season. And from what Losada just said, it sounded like that really wasn't the case this year.
Well, there wasn't a coach this off season, and we
you
waited a long time.
would still think though, like that your physio team and your assistant coaches, like they're still trying to keep the players in shape.
Yeah, I think it's a bit much to say that the guys were just sitting on their couches through the longer than normal off season, but it's very clear that Losada has a different standard for fitness, and that it's higher than anything that we've seen in DC United in the recent history. And I think, especially when you look at it coming into next year, guys know that their BMIs are going to be up on the board, and their coach is going to lay into them for it. It's going to be a thing. It's obviously different for professional athletes who are out there, putting their body on the line, but it's going to be a different thing. And you're still, again, very early in the season. You've only had a few weeks to get there. Hopefully the guys are responding to Losada, letting them know that it's not where it needs to be right now.
Yeah, and I do think that we saw some of those moments. I think we saw some good build-up, some times even when the build-up fell through that you could see what the players were getting at. And Black, you're right. I mean, we're 3 games in. 2 of the 3 games have been away, one of them on the West Coast. It's tough, any type of West Coast travel is tough. So I think there are positives to draw from this game.
Yeah, I think Hernan was pretty spot on, where it could have gone either way, but the moments of the match didn't go our way. And
he said that last game too. He said like essentially that quote last game.
And I think that's a little bit up to the players. I think maybe a little bit up to the tactics. We'll see. Hopefully it gets better.
Yeah, Black, what do you think as I pull up the next thing?
Yeah, I think, we covered Losada's comments in depth. And to be fair, we've focused in on a lot of the negatives that he brought out, because, there's going to be a lot of negatives in the game you lose 4-1, but he was not entirely down on the team. He was very much, struck me as a guy who, saw things he wanted to work on, saw things that he liked. He's going to be communicating that to the team during the week. But we're definitely going to focus on those few little sound bites that pop out and really kind of sit front of mind. But, he, like he said, that there were many, many positive things, at least from his mind. And I hope that they find a way to build on those.
Yeah. And I mean, when you look at the stat sheet, he's absolutely right. This one has DC United winning possession, which is rare when you're the away team, right? And interestingly, neither team had an offside, which I don't think you see very often. But I think we can move forward. I had pulled up DC United's Twitter because I was going to try to find who their man of the match was. And I don't see it up, and I don't think they did one last game either. So we might have to contact DC United and see what's up with that.
I think they might have given it to Briant, but I know that we did not do a man of the match last week.
Yeah, we definitely forgot. We didn't forget. We definitely talked about it afterwards. We forgot to do it on air, though. So I'm going to turn it to Joshua first. Who is your man of the match for tonight?
I'll give it to Alfaro by default. I don't think he had a particularly good game. I thought his yellow card was kind of silly. He made some bad choices, but everyone else on DC United made bad choices tonight. I thought shouts to Nyman for having a season debut for him? Or no, he got a couple minutes, but it's his first start of the season. But I think he kind of failed in implementing himself into the system, and that kind of hurt DC United, so I'm not going to give him my man of the match. I'm going to stick with Alfaro.
All right, Black.
Before I get into the man of the match, I do want to point out I missed as we were setting up for the show here that Kamari Smith did get in for that last 5 minutes or so for Moses.
Wait, what? I totally missed that too. Okay.
So he did get a little bit of that garbage time, but clearly did not stick out in our minds. But
yeah,
I do want to give him credit for getting out there at least for a little bit. So for me, my man of the match has little to do with the performance today, although I do think he was fairly solid. And I know that we've got some listeners who will hate me for this, but the story that Felipe has after having a major injury last August, September, and the work that he's put in to come back. We heard a little bit during the press conference this week, him talking about taking photos and videos every day. So he remembered working through the process, and then to get out there today and, really a guy who's seems to be taking a leadership role, like he said, slotting back in like he never left. He's the guy going out to talk to the media and after a 4-1 loss. So I got to give him a lot of credit, and for that, he's my man of the match. But I'll give a shout out to Moses as well, because there was not a huge drop off to have him come in. He definitely saved a goal there, and overall played fairly well for what we'd expect from him.
Yeah, I like that shot, and I do like the emphasis on his how he's handled it. He basically in the press conference is like, I'm back now. I don't want to talk about it. We're here now. I liked it.
Yeah. I'm also going to give my man of the match to Felipe. I was thinking about during the game, and kind of going through the roster, and everyone just kind of made me mad. I was disappointed with everyone's performances, but Felipe did go out there and do good stuff. And the storyline, it's been interesting. The interviews we've been able to conduct with players, the press conferences we've been able to listen to, that every player kind of approaches injuries a little bit differently, right? Some of them want to talk about the process. They want to be really open about it. Some of them continue talking about it afterwards. They use it as motivation. Some of them don't want to talk about it. It's all very different. And Felipe's mindset is very much, yep, that's over. I never want to think about it again. I'm back. Let's just keep going. And right on, right? Like, let's keep going and let's do better next game. And Black, also thank you for pointing out that Smith did make it in the game. We were setting up at the end of the game, kind of glancing up, but I guess we just missed that sub. I would argue that 5 minutes is probably not enough time to even touch the ball the way we were playing at the end of that second half. It's a forward, right? You need minutes to get there, but thank you for pointing that out. I will do our weekly shout out to Across the Pond. We love going there and encourage everyone to. I'm not sure if our promo code podcast still works, but you can try it. Couldn't get out there for tonight's game because of COVID restrictions. DC is, I think you're not allowed to serve past midnight, so it is now almost 2 a.m. Clearly that was not a move we were able to make, but if you can this week, get out there, go to ATP. They're more than willing to put any soccer game on, really. And I would encourage you to ask for Brian as your server. He's my younger brother, so everyone go and give him a little bit of nonsense for me. Give him a little love for me. All right, anything else from you all on the game before we wrap up and look ahead?
No, let's move on.
Black, anything else?
Okay.
Yeah,
this one's done.
Sounds good. So looking forward, I made the comment that it's 2 a.m. We had the late night game this Saturday, now Sunday, but next week we've got the early afternoon game. We are playing on Saturday, May 8th at 1:30 p.m. At Columbus. And I know we're super excited about it because 3 of the 4 of us, unfortunately, Black can't join, but Joshua, John, and I will be at that game. We are very excited. Why'd you give me that look?
Yeah, and we got some work to do. We're going to figure out how we're going to bring the show live from Columbus, but we definitely will have a show for you guys, whether it's just like a FaceTime or a group chat that you all get invited. No, I'm just kidding. We'll figure something out and we'll put it out on Twitter and get it out there.
There'll be lots of shouting in a parking lot.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it might not be as immediately after the final whistle as we typically like to do, but Josh was right. We will definitely have a show, so just look out on social media for that. Columbus will be coming off their second leg of CCL, and they have had 2 ties this season in MLS, and today they tied Montreal. So Black pointed out earlier that kind of all the CCL teams are struggling a little bit in MLS. You can definitely see the toll it's taking on them. They are playing against Monterey, and they have a 2-2 aggregate against Monterey, but Monterey has the away goals.
Yeah,
so they have to go in and win that game.
It should be a good chance for DC United to strike and come away with some points there in Columbus. I'm excited for it, especially since we'll be there.
Absolutely. The Monterey game is someday this week. Should have looked up exactly what day. Do either of you know off the top of your head?
Oh, no. I don't follow the crew schedule that well, but normally the CONCACAF games are Wednesday or Thursday.
Yep. All right. So, yes, absolutely a good opportunity to strike. Zelarayan will not be playing in CCL, so he will be fit for DC United's game. Definitely something to keep an eye on. But we are looking forward to that. Looking at some other teams we are affiliated with, Loudoun United play at Miami FC, I guess, later today at 7:30 p.m. on Sunday. So looking forward to seeing that. And then Washington Spirit are unfortunately out of the Challenge Cup. So it's going to be a little while before, I guess not a little while, only a couple weeks before we see them. They will be playing on May 16th versus Orlando. So I think that wraps it up for us. My brain's getting a little fuzzy with the late hour. Anything else either of you want to put in before we wrap up for tonight?
I gotta say that I have a whole new respect for DC United Kingdom for watching most of the games at a similar hour. I don't know how he does it, and I think he watched this one and joined us in the chat as well. So, shout out to you, sir. This is rough.
I think it's 5 or 6 a.m. for him right now. So
it's about 7 now.
Yeah.
But normally it's about, yeah. But yeah, thanks, and hopefully this is the only time I can ever tell you guys have a good morning.
Yeah, so with that, we'll wrap it up for the night. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us live. Go get a good night's sleep. To everyone who listened later on the podcast, we appreciate the listen. Give us a follow on social media, and we will talk to y'all soon on Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken.